Getting these kids involved. I'm trying to get so many kids involved because they're the future. If we don't get them going, we're in trouble long term. We're really in trouble if we don't get them involved and going.
We're talking about boots and backstraps.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Boots and Backstraps. I'm your host, Shane Michael, and I'm joined in studio by my ever so tan now, spending so much time out in the yard, co-host Tom Cap.
Tan? I haven't been tan in years.
You got some color.
Well, I have been. It's amazing. Being retired now, I've gotten so many projects done in the yard in the last few days, especially with this nice weather. I'm just kind of gearing up to get the last project done, and then Lynn and I will have the whole summer free.
Well, it's obvious because you got this rolled up, very white paper next to your hand with a little color on it.
Okay.
Yeah, distinguished.
All right.
It's nice.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, man. So what's new?
Well, for me, I don't know. You and I were out in Wisconsin on the property a couple of weeks. Oh, not about a week ago, I guess. And
Getting attacked and assaulted by mosquitoes?
Man, you know, as much as I love Minnesota and Wisconsin, the mosquitoes, the deer flies, the horse flies, all the biting insects, especially the wood ticks, because I'm very sensitive to them for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it drive you crazy. We were cutting trails out in the property out in Wisconsin, and we got attacked pretty good, but we got a lot of work done, and it's what you got to do. It's fun work.
It's fun and productive.
Yeah, carrying a cane chaw.
Whoa,
that was a Freudian slip.
Rewind.
I have a joke about a Freudian slip that I can't tell on this podcast.
Not on this show.
But remind me to tell you to you later after the show. What did I just say? A cane chaw?
Something like that. I think you meant to say chainsaw.
Oh, well. All right, let's drink.
Right? We do need a drink.
It's good to be here again. And Danny, our producer, if she has any input, you'll be hearing her voice again today. But before we get into our guest, what'd you have to say, Danny?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
So we got to get to our Whiskey of the Week segment before we bring our guest in.
And, you know, I've heard from so many people that this is such a fascinating, and it is for me, it's such a fascinating segment of our show because it's amazing how much you have learned and you know about bourbons and all the different bourbons. How many bourbons do you think we've had on show? 30?
At least 30 bottles, on the show.
And the history of them that you provide for us is really fascinating.
Thank you.
This isn't something that we do here to get loose or stiffen up. It actually is just a wonderful bunch of information. Well, Shane, go ahead and tell them how it is that you know so much about bourbons.
It's an appreciation for an iconic U.S. Trade and pastime, which is whiskey. Whiskey is absolutely synonymous with American trade and culture. Whiskey's been around for 100 years in this country, and obviously very popular in all different regions, all different walks of life, all different political and religious views. Everybody not everybody, but lots of folks appreciate whiskey. So I started getting into it via some friends because I've always, as you know, been a big Jack Daniels guy.
Mm-hmm.
And some friends of mine opened my eyes probably 3 or 4 years ago now to saying, hey, there's a lot more out there than just Jack Daniels. And so I started sampling other stuff. And, of course, now it's like wildfire where I've had so many different whiskeys and Irish and Scotch and American whiskey and rye and bourbon. And, you know, it's all over the map. Japanese. I've got some Japanese in my collection right now.
I hear that Japanese stuff is pretty good.
It is. Yeah, Irish, Japanese, those tend to be a bit more on the mild in the whiskey. So their proofs are lower, 80s, maybe 90 proof, that kind of thing. And the American whiskeys are the ones that have the more punch. Mm-hmm. Most of the higher proof stuff is American. So speaking of, today we brought something from the Jack Daniels family. Speaking of Jack Daniels.
How appropriate. Yeah. Jack Daniels has always been my favorite. My father drank Jim Beam, and I remember when I started drinking bourbons, I was drinking Jim Beam, and then it was just like one day, I don't like the taste of this anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe it was because I had a Jack, and in my opinion, no offense to the Jim Beam people, I like the Jack so much better.
Yeah, and I would tend to agree with you there. So as far as Jack Daniels is concerned, I mean, most people have heard of Jack Daniels. Most people have seen the black label, old number 7 Jack Daniels.
You bet.
It's
iconic.
One of the most widely carried bourbons in the world in most bar and restaurants. When you get a whiskey and Coke, you're almost always getting that Jack Daniel's Old Number 7. So Jack Daniel's is sort of a play on words because the founder of Jack Daniel's was Jasper, known as Jack Daniel. And so when you hear the term Jack Daniel's, it's in reference to one of their labels. So Jack Daniel or Jasper Daniel is the founder of the distillery, but this label is Jack Daniel's Bottled and Bonded.
Well, now I have a question for you. I have a
Yeah.
little quiz for you. Coincidentally, I've been watching a documentary on television on the National Geographic or Smithsonian, I don't know, one of those channels, and it's called Booze, Bets, and Sex That Created America.
Okay.
It's all about the different alcohols and the casinos, and like I only saw one part of the sex part was the guy that invented prophylactics.
Oh,
And then last night I saw a little bit of a segment of where the art guy was meeting with Hugh Hefner, and so I hadn't seen it. But at any rate, do you know who taught Jack Daniels or Jack how to distill whiskey?
I don't.
Well, they've got a new product out named after the man, and this is just going to make me look dumber than hell because I can't think of his name. But he's a black man. It was Jack what was his name?
Jasper.
It was Jasper.
Jasper Newton Daniel was his full name.
Before this podcast is over with, I'll probably remember, but it was a black man that he was a partner with, and he actually taught him how to distill whiskey.
How about that?
And in honor of him, just recently, they came out with their best Jack Daniels ever, and it's labeled after that black man that he was partners with, who never saw the benefits of all of the Jack Daniels because he passed away.
Sure.
But no one ever forgot him, and it was just interesting that I learned it just literally a few nights ago. So as soon as it pops into my pea brain here, I'll throw it out there.
So Jack Daniel's is actually owned by Brown Forman.
Okay.
That's the company that owns the distillery, and there's probably 24 Jack Daniel's labels between your regular Old 7 and this one and the single barrel and the single barrel rye and Gentleman Jack, all those different, the Jack Honey, the Jack Fire, like all those different varieties, right?
Right.
So this is the one that's an homage to that 1897 Bottled and Bond Act that we've talked about on the show numerous times. And this is a new release. This just came out within the last few months.
There it is.
Being released on stores in Minnesota. And it's actually, I just sampled it this last weekend. We had some folks over for a whiskey tasting, which we do every few months or so. And I got to try this, and it's absolutely fabulous. So
I can't wait to try it. I mean, from a guy that pretty much has quit drinking, I still enjoy this segment of tasting the varieties of bourbons that you bring over.
So a lot of folks will discard bourbons that are distilled outside of Kentucky because they're whiskey snobs. But there's a lot of great bourbons distilled all over the place. The East Coast, the West Coast, Texas has great bourbon. Tennessee is another one of those places. So Jack Daniel's is distilled in Tennessee, Lynchburg, Tennessee, which I think most people know. And they're famous for their charcoal filtration process. And that's what makes it Tennessee distillation. And so in Jack Daniel's, this charcoal is more prevalent in sort of your basic Jack Daniel's Old Number 7 Black Label brand. And as you move up the food chain, that charcoal flavor tends to go away, and you get some other flavor notes in there. So this one, as an example, screamed bananas to me. Like I could taste bananas in here. Caramel and bananas is what I picked up.
That's
in this
perfect for you.
whiskey.
Because you're kind of bananas.
Yeah. Well, I'm friends with you, so I got to be a little, right?
Lynn, I bet if you brought that to Danny, she could whisper that in my ear.
Oh.
My wifey, Lenny, just pulled up on her phone.
Found the name.
Found the name of the
Well, while she's doing that, why don't you give me your glass, and I'll pour you
Okay.
some here. And then while I'm pouring it, if you wouldn't mind, why don't you introduce our guest?
I will. I'd love to. And
You just met him, right?
this is going to be we've done, I don't know, 50-some. Well, actually, he's been on our show once before. Ladies and gentlemen, my dearest friend, Oscar Carlson, sitting to my right.
Whoa! Well, thank you.
I know all of the sheep people that are going to be viewing our podcast. They all know who you are. which reminds me, I'm going to have to start with this story, Oscar, because
Uh-oh.
let's
Okay.
see. It was Oscar, myself, and Oscar's lifelong friend, John, and Oscar's son. The four of us went down to Las Vegas, and from there we went to, I think, 4 different golf courses in Nevada and Arizona, if I'm not correct.
Yeah.
And we're at this one golf course, great golf course. And I learned that I was seeing these turds all over these golf courses. I'm like, they look like horse turds. And so I had to ask. They turned out to be wild burrows. And when it gets dark, they come up onto the golf course because of the green grass, and they feed. And just before sundown that one night, I heard one of the wild burrows whinnying down in the valley there, so I wasn't being put on. But anyway, we having a beverage
On the golf course. You just walk up on there,
You
you
just
can dump
walk
on the
up-
fairway.
Yeah.
These golf courses are out
Right
in
on the green.
See, I thought we had a rough head to deal with Canadian geese in Minnesota. Those are tough to putt
Oh,
around.
these are bigger droppings.
Oh, yeah. So we're at this beautiful
You
golf
feel
course,
like you're at a mini putt course trying to go around obstacles.
and I was watching a gentleman, and he was an older gentleman, but I could tell he wasn't an employee because he was out there, he and his wife. I was just kind of watching because being in the restaurant business, I always watch that sort of thing. And this guy's moving tables, and he's just kind of getting things ready to shut down. And as he got closer to us, I noticed he had a sheep shirt on. And I said, "Are you with the Sheep Foundation?" And he goes, yeah, blah. And he started explaining. He looked at, he says, "You're Oscar Carlson." And Oscar's like, "Oh, no." He says, "You're a legend." And I'm like, "Oh, man, did you have to say that in front of me?" So right out of the blue, a place we've never been before, this gentleman who was actually wearing a sheep T-shirt on, he actually owned the golf course, and I was right. He was shutting her down, and that's what the owners have to do sometimes. They have to get in there and pitch in. But this is my good friend Oscar Carlson. We pheasant hunt together. We bear hunted together, deer hunt. What else have we done? We've had a few beverages.
A lot of golfing.
A lot of golfing.
A little golfing here and there. And yeah, I've never seen that guy before that I know of, but somehow he recognized me, and that was kind of cool in a way.
It was cool.
But
It's cool, though.
I can't get away from that story anymore when I'm with this guy. But I'm going to have to tell you, I got a funny story about your whiskey thing.
Oh, great.
If you don't mind my backtracking into that.
No, let's do it.
My
Tomas?
father-in-law was, he bought, he was really a poor guy, just like I grew up real poor on a little tiny farm. And anyway, he had some real cheap, I think it was, maybe I shouldn't say Jim Beam, but Jim Beam was a cheaper liquor.
Sure. Yep.
And I had bought a bottle of Crown, I think it was. I don't know how Crown rates in your deal, but I like Crown's pretty good.
Yeah.
And so he tasted that, and he loved that compared to his Jim Beam.
Sure.
So when he would go out to these dance halls, they did a lot of dancing back then in the old time,
Sure.
waltzes and shot.
That's where breakdancing was originally.
Oh yeah, breakdancing. Yeah. Anyway, he would take his. He borrowed my bottle, my Crown bottle, and he would pour his Jim Beam in there and bring his Crown to the table like he could afford this good.
The big spender.
The big spender. It was really cute. When I found that out, I just had to laugh.
Pull a fast one on you.
Yeah.
Did he confess to you afterward? Or did you notice when you drank it?
My wife told me that that's what he was doing because
Okay.
his wife had mentioned it, to my wife, and anyway, the story got out. So I really got a kick out of that.
That's pretty smart on his part.
You know
Oh
that,
yeah, I mean he was classy drinker now.
Remember that bar up by north of Ely, where we went
Oh,
grouse
yeah.
hunting.
Sure.
I'm not going to mention the name of it, but there's two famous ones. One of the establishments, I ordered a jack, and I have no idea what he gave me because
Oh,
he
yeah.
was taking the jack. Jack has a very distinct taste.
Yes, it does.
And he was taking the jack out of the bottle, and he was serving the public some whiskey that I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, what? And I'm like,
sure.
come on, man.
Hey, as long as we're telling whiskey stories, I got one for you guys.
Okay.
There was a local establishment who shall remain nameless because they're still in business today, and I don't want to disgrace their name because I'm sure it was a unique incident. But went in there with some friends for a music concert. It was a Friday or a Saturday night, and a local band that I knew was playing. Went in there, and even at that point, I was ordering my Jack Neat. So for those of you that don't know what neat means, it's like this, where there's no mix, there's no rocks, as in ice, nothing, just the whiskey.
It's neat.
It is neat. So he pours me this, when you get it neat, they usually give you a little bit more than they would if it was in a cocktail. So you get like 1.5 ounces kind of a thing. And he poured it. And right when the hand was coming at me, I knew something wasn't right with it. So you can see this sort of like amber color. Mm-hmm. Well, imagine this being way more translucent.
Oh.
So it clearly was watered
down.
And I know that's something that, happens in the bar industry occasionally. Yeah. They're getting low on a product, and they might do that. I'm not saying that anyone specific does that, but it happened at this bar. So I pointed it out to the bartender. As soon as he handed it to me, I was like, that's not right. And he goes, what do you mean? He says, I actually gave you more than 1 ounce. And I was like, no, I don't have a problem with the pour. The issue is that is not, the color's not right. And he said, oh, no, I poured it right out of this bottle. And so he pulls the bottle up, and he held the bottle up, and it was clearly watered down. When you have it's a 750,
yeah,
there's still this much liquor in it. And it was like, not like this, where you got that caramel color. It was half that shade at best. And I just said, I don't want to sound like an asshole, but is that watered down? And he was like, what? No, we don't do that here. And I was like, okay, I don't mean any offense, but this shot that you just gave me, this glass and that bottle clearly are not right. That's not right. And I sampled a little bit, and it was definitely watered down. I mean, right when you taste it, it was clearly watered down. So I said, why don't you grab a new one? So he grabbed a new one, and he held it up next to it, and of course it was night and day.
There it was.
And then he was just, red-faced. He was egg on the face, and the manager came over and apologized to me and said, I don't know how this happened, but you're clearly right. We're gonna dump this out. And we're gonna, pour you another drink, and then I'm gonna buy you another one on top of that. And
did he actually say, "I don't know how this happened"?
He did. He said, "I don't know how this happened." Yeah.
Well, I bet you have an idea.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I think he was trying to avoid, any further embarrassment when I recommended that he hold it next to a new bottle. And the bartender clearly was not the culprit, because he was like, no problem. And he went and grabbed another bottle and held it up. Then he was like, oh, shit.
Oh, we got caught.
Yeah. Even he looked at it and couldn't deny it. He was like, yeah, that ain't right. So,
bourbon might be our favorite topic tonight. I don't know.
You know what? We're never going to get to the Waterhole.
I started my company in 1985, and one of my sons found a bottle in of whiskey in it's all labeled 1985. It's in a wood box. It's labeled and everything. It was really, I don't know where he found it, but I think it gets better with age, and this is really good stuff.
do you remember at all what the brand was?
No, I don't. I don't remember what brand, but it is very good. So I just take a little sample once in a while and enjoy it, and I don't share it with anybody.
He's just gonna put this on it. Anyway, so don't do that.
You've never been to Oscar's house, have you?
I haven't. I've heard the stories numerous times.
Maybe a little pizza get together over there sometime so you can see his wine. He's got an amazing wine room.
Oscar, I will smoke something on my smoker and bring it over if I can get an invite.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be good.
The rumor is you're a meat eater.
Oh yeah, I have eaten some meat.
There we go.
All the time.
From all over the world.
Well, I love traveling. I love mountains. I love sheep and ibex and the challenge they present, and it's really a joy to get one of them, because you really got to work. You got to work for those boys.
So I know we're working our way to some of the stuff that you've had going on more recently. But it's been a year, Oscar, since you were in the hot seat over there.
Has it been that long?
It's been a year.
Wow.
It's hard to believe it's been that long already, but
So what have you been up to in that year? What else is going on?
well, we went on another Waterhole project. First of all, we went to the National Sheep Foundation meeting and went to the regional one, our local chapter, Minnesota Midwest chapter, and
How many folks are involved in that when you have a meeting usually?
at
For like the Midwest chapter.
the Midwest chapter, well, we've had as many as 400.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
Oh yeah. We've filled up the Marriott Southwest a number of times, but now with filming and videos and all those things and COVID, we really got knocked back. Well, we didn't even have one 2 years ago, and then we had one last year. It was very successful.
Yeah, it was great.
Good attendance, and we had the national representation coming, and it was.
You finally had an MC that knew what he was doing.
I'll say, I know a great MC if you need one.
Yeah.
He's retired, but he might do a little something for you.
Well,
I did MC it for I think 4 or 5 years, and then Oscar got tired of me using him as the blunt of my jokes, so they fired me and put the old guy back.
we
to
gotta
work.
have somebody else back
We've
here.
got to have
We
a
gotta-
professional.
Yeah, we gotta have a pro.
So who did MC the last one?
I'm sorry, I don't remember his name.
I don't know either. He was the MC for quite a few years, and then Tom stepped in for 4 or 5. I don't know how many, and then he came back, and he was happy as a lark to come back.
He's great. What a nice guy.
And he's really good. He's good.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a lot better.
I guess that's what.
Oh,
I don't know
excuse
if I
me.
can say "kiss my ass" on national.
No swearing. Remember, Tom. Especially at your guest here. No.
So we're all, we are leading into the main topic of this podcast tonight, which is the Waterhole project that Oscar's been doing for about 40 years.
Before we
And-
get to that, though, TK,
Yeah.
I'm just curious, like if you've done any other hunting or any other stuff in the last year, just because it's been so long since he was here.
I can't. Nothing. No big game except for deer hunting and bear hunting up at my property, and some turkey hunting and stuff like that. But no out of state project or
I think the last thing he did was the
aoudad, I think.
the Aoudad or the I'm drawing a blank again, the Iceland, Greenland.
Oh, well, yeah, that wasn't since we met, but I got a gorgeous aoudad. Holy smokes!
Aoudad in Texas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I have a picture of it.
Do you? Can you give that to Danny? Can you ship it to her?
I can ship that to my wife, who can ship it to Danny.
Yeah, because Aoudad
Actually,
is...
there's a picture. There's a couple pictures of Oscar on there. One's with this massive mule deer, and one is with a great big aoudad.
Let's get them both.
And then there's a couple in there of the bear that he and I killed together, and he actually pulled the trigger.
Oh, nice. So aoudad is a unique animal, and not many. I mean, because I know a lot of avid hunters up here that hunt deer and bear and turkeys and like all the stuff you see in the Minnesota, Wisconsin area that had never heard of an aoudad, and I had never heard of it either.
Have you ever heard of the Barbary sheep?
No.
Oh, they're the same.
Okay.
They're in this.
They're from California, and you're more of the expert on.
No, they're.
I don't think I even said
They were
that right.
transplanted here in the 20s and 30s,
Okay.
and they've expanded pretty rapidly
Sure.
in Texas and Arizona,
New Mexico.
New Mexico area.
So
And
they're warm
Did
weather.
I say that right?
Barbary.
Barbary.
And
Barbary Coast.
but-
warm climate animal.
Well, there's a bunch of aoudad there. That's what you're. That's the animal we're talking about, the
Right,
Barbary
yeah.
sheep.
And I got one that was in the excess of 30 inches, which was a monster. It just was beautiful.
So was this on a property with someone that you knew, or was it an outfitter? Or
It was an outfitter.
okay.
And I had bought that at a sheep foundation meeting, and then I followed up on it and made some arrangements. It was down in Texas on they have some of them in huge fences, but this one was a wild,
Right.
I've never hunted behind a fence ever, and I never intend to.
There you
Right.
go.
But anyway, this guy had a field that they'd come down to every once in a while. He thought for sure they were going to be there right when I got there that evening, but nothing came, and he was really disappointed. So the next day, that big one came down with a bunch of ewes,
And ewes are the females, right?
yeah. And he said these are really tough animals. He says
They are.
they are really tough.
They're
He says
very-
you'll never bring him down. He'll run at least 100 yards after you shoot. And I said, well, you want to lay $100 on that?
I've seen what his gun can do.
I was saying, what were you shooting? What was your choice of firearm?
Well, I don't like to chase anything anymore, so
Okay.
I have a 300 Ultra Mag.
Okay.
And 185 grain bullet, and he didn't go
Like getting hit by a bus, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So he paid me $100. I gave it back to him, but it was kind of a side bet we had. Just he thought that thing was going to run, but anyway, it was just another.
So it didn't. You dropped him right there.
Oh, he just dropped like a.
And I
like
can
a sack of
testify,
potatoes.
he and I were in a tree once, and a really large Bruin came in, bear, and that thing looked like it was T-boned by a semi. He hit that thing, and it went sideways, I swear, the length of this table, and crashed into a tree. I'm like, what the hell did you shoot him with?
A giant fist.
Like I said, I don't like to trail anything anymore.
Yeah, we didn't trail either one of those bears.
No, we didn't have to go 10 yards.
So how much kick you got on that Ultra Mag? Does it?
Well, I don't practice much.
Okay.
That tells you anything.
Yeah.
But just enough to get warmed up again. That's all.
There you go.
Got a cider in.
I don't know where we were. We were talking about
Well, I was talking about how we're eventually going to get to the Waterhole project, and then he changed the subject
Oh
again.
yeah.
Well, so you had your regional meeting.
Yeah.
We'll go back to that. Reel it back in.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, this
What-
guy hunts
what-
a lot of stuff, so I'm curious. Like, what else you been chasing?
Well,
Other than your wife, obviously.
I've been all over the place in the world.
Thank you.
Actually.
It's funny, at the
Give me a rim
Waterhole
shot for my
project,
joke.
we got to ride down the mountain, which was a 45-minute drive from the base camp of this Waterhole project. A couple of young guys that were just getting into sheep hunting, and they were talking about their sheep, the one that each of them got. And Oscar chimed in, but he wasn't bragging. He said, well, I've got the World Slam. I've got 4 Grand Slams. These guys like, well, who the hell are you?
Oh. I don't remember that, but
The other guys that were with you traveling.
It just came up in conversation.
oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was.
Oh, these are just a couple young guys that we all needed a ride up the mountain and a ride down the mountain because it was a 45-minute ride. Mm-hmm. And it was hotter than Hades, and all the vehicles. So there's Oscar, myself, and Mark, and one of the gals, and we needed a ride. And there's 2 young guys, and they piled us into
Oh
their
yeah,
truck.
I remember those guys. Yeah.
And we just, I got 45 minutes to talk.
Yeah.
Whether it's a 4-wheeler or a truck, it's way the Mescal Mountains is where we were.
That's a form of wine, isn't it? Mescal?
That's
or
a form
tequila?
of tequila. That picture you're looking at on the screen right now is a picture of a ram that I took a picture of by the Superstition Mountains in Arizona, east of Phoenix.
That's a nice looking ram.
Yeah.
And I just snapped that picture and sent a text to Oscar. Mm-hmm. So that's the reason that came up, was because they're still looking for those pictures of the Aoudad.
I wasn't sure if. I'm impressed that you not only shoot them, with bows and guns, but with your camera too. So proud moment on my end.
So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to eventually here get to the main reason we're having Oscar back is all the hunting and carousing he and I have done together. I've seen pictures on his wall of this Waterhole project, and he often talks about it, and I really, as anyone, had no idea what it was all about. So he decided to invite me this year, which was the thrill, and it was amazing. I mean, I'll tell you my part of it, and then Oscar, you can certainly chime in because we have lots to talk about. But there had to be at least 80 to 100 volunteers, and these tanks are brought up by helicopter, and Danny has some pictures of the helicopter. There are 2,500 gallon tanks, and there's 4 of them. And this whole project from beginning to end gets done in 3 days. That's where we were camped, and that's one of the helicopters that was bringing product. I think he's bringing up rebar for the fencing up right now. But they had to airlift everything up there. And this whole thing, and it might not sound impressive by me saying it, gets done in 3 days. But if you could see or understand the magnitude of this project, it's like a miracle.
So, Oscar, how did this concept get started?
There you go. Good question.
Well, you know, the Arizona people had this going for a long time before I got involved even. But they were doing it really crude. They'd dig a hole or something and lay cement down there, or they'd dig into a side of a mountain and try to seal it somehow and have water flow into it. And then when I got involved, then they were evolving the process, getting it better and better and better. And so now it has, like Tom said, the helicopter, or they actually have to bring up, if they can, a bobcat or some kind of a digging device so they can bury these huge tanks. And they bury them all in line. They line it all up perfectly. And everything is gravity fed. First of all, you put a great big apron down on top of everything, and at a slight angle, about 4-degree angle, it goes into a trough, and then there's some screens so no junk can get through there, not much junk anyway, and it gets filtered out and gets distributed to these 4 tanks now. So you got 10,000 gallons worth of water, and what they do, they dump a load from their helicopter on it just to test it, make sure there's no leaks or anything, and then it goes into the trough, and then we have going gravity fed into a drinker, a smaller drinker, and that's what everything drinks out of. You know, whether
All the wildlife.
It feeds deer and wolves and fox and birds and sheep, and but all wildlife feeds out of that.
And the fence is designed to keep 2 animals out.
Yeah, we build an elaborate fence around this whole thing, and it's all welded fence, sealed with the posts that are dug into the ground and
Dug into the rock. It's
the
amazing.
rock. Yeah.
How many acres would you say that? It's like
it's probably a good 3-4 acres, somewhere
3
in
or
there.
4 acres.
There's
a photo.
Go ahead, Oscar.
There's the fence, and it's actually, you can see there's 3 bars. They're all welded together. It's a big project, and they're all welded together, and it's spaced so no burro or horse can get through.
Or elk.
No,
Right?
elk can jump through.
Okay.
Up. Elk can jump it.
So they keep the burros and the horses out.
It's just for the burros and horses, and they've done a study where they can't stoop down or jump over anything that when it's spaced just like that.
So what's the purpose in keeping horses and burros specifically out?
Well, the burros, for instance, they crap and make such a mess that they try to keep the water only to something they would consume.
Okay,
It's
gotcha.
so bad.
Yeah.
And they mess it up and pests and shit.
Like the
And,
brother-in-law that drinks all your beer when he stays for the weekend.
So,
Get that guy out.
and the horses, if they got onto the ramp or the burrow, got onto that. Did you see that ramp there? Maybe you can go back.
Can you go back, Danny,
No,
please?
I don't think you can see it in that particular
Well,
picture.
no, you probably can't. But you
You're
can
talking
see
about the drinker?
You can see the frame anyway.
Okay.
Anyway, it's like a big metal roof that goes into the trough. And the horses, if the horses and burros got on there, they could
They'd wreck it.
really damage it, really
Yeah.
big time in a hurry. So that's why there's a fence around it.
If you look, you can see the 4 tanks, and it might be a little deceiving. Those 4 tanks, each one of them is about the size of this room.
Oh, geez.
They're huge.
Well, you said 2,500 gallons, right?
2,500 apiece.
I mean, that's big.
And so
So is this the roof that you're talking about that they could damage walking on?
Yeah, that
That
roof.
is a roof.
Yeah, that.
okay.
I don't think you can't see how it's at a very slight angle, and I'm telling you, these guys got all the trams and everything all set. They know exactly what they're doing.
well, they have. You had some major engineers
Oh,
design
yeah.
this thing.
Just
This
to-
is not a fly-by-night. This is all engineered to specs. There's the 4 tanks.
Geez, those are big.
And they're all hooked up. I mean, they had professional plumbers there. They had
It's
engineers
like a
there.
single wide trailer house.
That's a drinker that
to the
that
far-
met-
to
that
the back.
far side there.
Okay.
So we built around it, so the animals can walk up there. We had to fill in all that stuff. You can see what we had to fill in.
Sure.
And then we build a walkway for the animals, and then they have to walk down into that drinker. 4 feet, 3 to 4 feet,
Right.
because it's all gravity fed. So
It doesn't require any mechanical devices at all.
not a bit, and it's sized so that a regular rain season will fill those 4 tanks up. The regular raining.
And they don't get much rain, so you can imagine that roof collects. I think I heard that if they have a 2-inch rain, it'll fill them all.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt that. Yeah, 2 inches is a lot of rain.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that. I haven't heard that particular.
And does that last for?
It'll last the summer.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll last the
That's
summer
fantastic.
until the next. They've got it sized so it should last the whole year. Should fill up and should last the whole year. There's the drinker.
Yep.
I'm standing in the drinker itself. I was just presenting or putting in the medallion that said the Mescal Mountain Project #1 or something like that. It's a metal.
So you can see the steps that go down. That drinker will be at different levels at different times.
So the animals walk down those
Yep.
steps into where they drink.
Yep.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and I think, Shane, you asked Oscar a good question. Who in the world thought or knew what brought on the Waterhole project? I mean, obviously it's to get water to the animals that need it, but since they've been there for eons, was there, with global warming, an issue, or were they lacking in water?
No, what's partly started it is the herds were getting eliminated in certain because of hunting, because of urbanization, all the things that go against the animals, especially.
Vegetation.
Yeah, but they were getting squeezed down and eliminated in a lot of the mountainous areas. So in order to invite them back, I've been involved with some transplants too. I was on one of 40 years ago, probably already, at the National Wildlife Banquet Federation. We it was a National Wildlife Sheep Foundation. At one of their banquets, they actually sold, Arizona sold the rights to a naming of a new herd.
Okay.
And so anyway, I helped sponsor, I bought that. And so somewhere up in those mountains is a Carlson clan herd.
That's fantastic.
And another, and then another year, they auctioned off the rights to naming one of the water holes, and I ended up getting that because I was really involved with these. Arizona people are really committed wildlife conservationists. They're really dedicated. It's usually the same. I see the same group, unless they pass out. Some of them passed away.
Not more dead people.
Yeah, you guys are taking turns.
I had to
today.
get that in, you know. But they're a really dedicated group of people, and they're wonderful to work with. Their hospitality is stunning, and
Their hospitality was amazing.
Yeah.
They were all of them were just great people.
warm,
Fun to work with, and
warm, welcoming group of people. And they helped set up our camp, and they did all the cooking and stuff. We provided the funds to feed us all, but
yeah, they had a cook tent and a trailer and steaks and you name it.
yeah, they did a fantastic job. They
You said
always
there's-
do.
And you said there's 80 to 100 or so volunteers that come out for that?
And these aren't just any volunteers. These people are technical and tradespeople and
Yeah, they seem to always have welders available,
Yep.
electricians, guys that
Pipe
know
fitters.
how to. Yeah, they know what's going on. They always have a good group of people. But it's always also coordinated with the Arizona Game and Fish Department.
Yeah.
They're the ones that actually do the planning. They provide the materials, and we provide all the workers
Okay.
and lots of the technicians. So that's how it can all come together. We had
That's a big partnership.
oh, is it ever? Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
Especially because you have to deal with regulatory issues, and if you get somebody like a governmental agency on board, then it helps you to get rid of a lot of that red tape.
Well, for a long time there, they weren't allowing any new projects, but we were allowed to rehab old projects.
Okay.
So these are generally last about 25, sometimes 30 years. They're
wow.
really built to last.
And maybe longer now with innovation and materials.
Yeah,
right?
they've gotten better and better and better, over the years. So that's traditionally what they figured, 25 to 30 years. Once in a while, they got to get up there and what they call muck them out because, all the wind and stuff, it blows in some dirt and all kinds of stuff. So they got to get them mucked out once every 5-10 years, I guess.
So how many of these have you been involved with now?
I wish I had kept track, but I've done it
Best guess.
every about 22 maybe.
Okay.
I've been involved with the Arizona people in one way, shape, or other, mostly through the Waterhole projects.
And so, like, pandemic aside, the goal is to do one of these a year, I would assume?
They try to do 4 projects a year, and I try to, because it's a big project putting these together.
Yeah.
So I do
planning
one
has gotta be-
every 2 years I've been doing this.
Okay. Sure.
So they can count on us every 2 years, usually.
Got a lot
You
of raw
haven't
material.
been looking to your left there, Shane, but Danny's been showing some pictures of the helicopters moving things up, and there's the 4 tanks.
Who's that handsome devil in the bottom right corner there? Who's that guy?
Ooh. Ooh.
Couldn't have been me.
There's some of the kids
You know,
that we
It's
had.
so great that you have kids involved,
Well,
too.
that's one of the biggest parts of this whole podcast is
Is
the
that one?
fact.
Can you go back one, Danny? Go back one. Is that a young lady up there in the front?
Oh yeah, there's gals.
Oh yeah,
fantastic.
I
Great.
always tried to have an equal mix of guys and gals
Great.
because the women got to be involved just like the guys. If they aren't, supporting or getting involved themselves, anyway, I always try to have a mix because they set up tents for the girls, tents for the guys,
Of course.
and
Hopefully some security in between.
yeah, 14 to 18, you better be watching.
Yeah.
They were great kids, and as I was saying,
Are they local to Arizona?
no, they're local to Minnesota.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, look at that Minnesota sweater right there.
Yeah.
Oscar, for many years, and he can elaborate on this, it's one of the biggest parts of this whole deal is getting these young kids involved, and he's had as many as, say, 20 kids from typically Forest Lake High School. They have to write out an essay, and they have to get their parents' permission, but it's all paid for the kids, so it doesn't cost them anything, and then they typically write an essay about it when they're done. So if you want to elaborate on the kids' angle there, Oscar, go ahead.
Well, we get kids from all over. Actually, I've only had a few from each year from Forest Lake because I like to get the out. I get better response, frankly, from the smaller communities around the Twin Cities.
Right.
They seem to be more interested in conservation and traveling. Some of them have never been on a plane. Some of them have never been tenting. Some of them have never seen a desert or a cactus. So this is a beautiful experience.
It's an
for them.
amazing experience.
So what we have to do? First of all, we get the funding together. I used to fund this thing myself way back, but then there was so much interest in it that they said, "Well, why don't you put that out to the members?" So then we've been for $1,000 they can sponsor a student
For the Wild Sheep Foundation.
at the Wild Sheep Foundation meeting. Yeah.
Okay, great.
So we've been able to fill the numbers that we need, and that $1,000 will take care of their airfare, the transportation. I always have to get usually two buses or trucks or something, and then all the food and all that kind of stuff. So
Mountain Dew and Cheetos.
yeah, a lot of
Forgive me
snacks.
We're laughing right there, but
Yeah, and then we got to stop here, and I got to stop there because
we had one bus this year, and you couldn't get another shoe in it.
it was impossible to get
Because of
get
COVID.
trucks because of COVID. Hertz and all those didn't have anything available. Zero. They had sold out of their stuff to
Wow.
stay alive.
Yeah.
So they had nothing available. So I had to go off premise off the airport premise to get a truck, and then they only had one, and so anyway, we got all loaded into this one.
All of our luggage, all of our bodies, everything squeezed into, like my express van, into one of those. It was a little bit bigger than mine, but it was fun, and everyone was comfortable.
Yeah, we got along good. Thank goodness. They got introduced to each other pretty closely. You know?
Oh, I can imagine. Like
some-
flying commercial, right? Like you're bumping elbows.
Yeah, right.
On our way from the Phoenix, Arizona airport, and I'll let Oscar tell that we did a pit stop, an arboretum, and that was fascinating. If you want to expound on that.
Yeah, I always try to find something that's really interesting to add something to the trip besides just the Waterhole. Mm-hmm. And this time we went to a desert museum that was it was a desert cactus museum, but it had a lot of other stuff too.
Okay.
And they had cactuses from all over the world in there, and it was a great big, I don't know, it had to be 100 acres.
Yeah.
And you just hike and walk through all these places and they had them all labeled and very interesting. They had trees, different trees, and the kids they disappeared on us for quite a while.
They're up
They
there
got way
rock
ahead of
climbing.
us. They were rock climbing.
They had a ball.
So, having some experience with Cactus,
Cholla. Stay away from cholla.
Is it true that some of those real tall ones are actually just tarantula nests? That the tarantulas make nests in them?
I
I know a
didn't-
lot of birds and other animals make nests in. What are you just talking about? The swirl?
Saguaro.
Yeah, because I've heard guys who are like, yeah, if you see them out there in the desert, don't go whack them because you'll see those spiders.
Well,
come
they're
out of the
protected.
hundreds.
Better not.
No, no, I haven't seen that. That's probably a Smith.
Wives' tail.
Yeah, yeah.
This guy
But
would know the answer.
the woodpeckers love them.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I mean you see them up there digging holes and,
There's nutrients in there, right?
and nutrients, and then they nest in there and everything. So
All right.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
the desert is a fascinating
Ecological
see here.
system, right?
Yeah, just to go back to the kids, they work their tail off. The other thing I'm jumping around here a little bit, but
You're okay.
It's all right.
we after that Cactus museum, I'll call it Desert Museum, we then went to camp and got all set up. But then the very next morning, early in the morning, we had this fellow I have a good friend down there that brought in Randy Babb, who is a renowned photographer and writer about all the reptiles and amphibians and reptiles and snakes down in Arizona. Wonderful guy, and he put on a presentation for us that was outstanding. He brought some samples with, and I think
He
that
brought snakes and all kinds of animals that live in the desert. And here's one of his posters, and he
Wow.
so he was there for a couple hours.
Oh, yeah,
and the
just-
kids got to hold the snakes and all these different animals.
I mean, that's a dozen different snakes on one poster.
yeah, these are all the different rattlers.
Right.
And there was others. They have a lot of other kinds of snakes too, but we didn't handle those. There's a good
No.
rattler right there. That was one he pulled out of his trap.
Right. When I say we handled a lot of the animals, there were some animals
There's-
that we could handle, and some
These are
that we
Gila
couldn't.
monsters. These are poisonous too.
Right.
Just so you know, you don't touch those guys.
No.
They clamp on. Here's
One of the young guys.
They're holding the snakes, and that's some of the kids there. That some of the kids were more comfortable than others.
I was going to say, what an awesome experience for these kids to be part of something like this.
It was amazing.
So then, after we got done with this guy,
Yeah, so who's this gentleman?
that is Randy Babb, the guy that's holding that Gila monster, is the guy that was presenting all that.
He's a
Okay.
world famous naturalist.
Oh yeah.
If I said that correctly.
And after that, we went up in the mountain and got to work the rest of that day. Really, they work hard.
It was a lot of work, but I'll tell you what, I'm certainly a lot older than those kids, and it was
Oh,
fascinating.
Hold on 1 second, Danny. Go back a couple, please.
It was fascinating
there.
for me. That's the roof.
Yep, I just wanted to illustrate the point that Oscar made about the grading.
Yeah, that's the frame. Of course, then they laid the ribbed metal on top of that.
That corrugated metal.
Yeah.
Right. And that looks like two different sections, but it's not. They just haven't finished that.
They haven't connected it. That's all.
And at the far end is the high
There-
end, and then it drains down to this end.
To the trough, right?
The trough isn't attached yet.
Which is essentially like a rain gutter.
Yeah, right.
Yep,
Just a giant rain gutter, and that's the trough at the, sitting there on the end there. They haven't installed that yet.
Right.
And so that I would assume that rain gutter has some sort. You said a screen over it, some kind of filtration.
Yeah, there's a screen over it before it starts dumping into the. There we. I don't know what.
Some of the gals.
There's that corrugated metal.
Yeah, that was. This was one of those projects that they ripped apart.
and that was the old metal.
That's the old metal. Yeah.
But there was a couple pictures back where you could show kind of the depth right there. Kind of the depth of That's halfway down, and so you can see how large. I mean, each one of those posts had to be set in cement, and so we had to dig holes for each one of those posts.
Well, you don't want animals knocking them down.
Yeah.
We got these young kids swinging pickaxes with all of their might for a half an hour just to get one of those holes.
Wow.
And these great big, I don't know, the spikes. It was like going through rock.
Well, it's rock, yeah.
It was rock, and it was amazing to me. And
We used to, on some of the projects, we actually have a jackhammer.
oh, really?
They actually bring a jackhammer up because we'd end up not being able to make it, so they said, bring the jackhammer over, and they'd shake it.
They
They'd
didn't
knock
bring
it
no
loose.
jackhammer this
No,
year.
no, they didn't.
How
They
much
didn't have-
pickaxe did you swing there,
I
TK?
swung a lot, believe me. There was not a.
not
I mean, we took breaks. Let me tell you this: I worked a hell of a lot harder than he did.
Hey, somebody's got to play director.
Oh gosh, he was the director, and I get that. And
Okay.
but I did. I worked hard. I took breaks, but I did work hard.
That's how you stay lean
No,
and mean.
everybody did.
Yeah.
Everybody did a good job.
Here's TK.
We had a
Yeah.
real good crew.
Look at him sitting down on the job, Oscar. How'd you let that happen?
Yeah,
There's Mark.
that's where
I'll tell you what, Mark was the associate director because he was hanging out with Oscar the whole time, and they both kept looking at me to see what I was doing.
and he was sitting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was fun. It was a lot of work, but it was truly a lot of fun.
yeah, we got a lot done. A lot done. I didn't have as big a crew as I usually do because of COVID. I
Right.
had some cancellations and this and that. That's why we could get in one van. Otherwise, it would have been a real problem. I don't know how I would have done it. Maybe I could have rented a car,
Or Suburban or something.
in addition to
Well, there you go.
There's the crew that we brought.
That is the finished product.
Yeah.
You see the rock that was just those rocks that were just laid in cement around the lip of the drinker.
It's like
You can see the roof on the back, and you can still see the tanks behind the kids, behind Mark there. Oscar's in a tank. I'm in a tank with a scarf on. And then a couple of gals, and then that's the whole crew.
Yeah, that's the crew we brought.
looks like 10 kids and 3 adults.
And that's pretty much the finished product, isn't it, Oxford?
Yeah,
I
that
think
was
so.
pretty. We were wrapping it up, our portion. They were going to have to do a little bit of closing in around it.
Right.
But
You can see over there, Oscar, the medallion.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's,
right.
That is so cool
Yeah,
because that'll be there forever.
yeah. They let me usually put that in
As well.
just as.
You should put it in.
as
It's a big deal you do.
There
right?
it is, right there.
You're kind of humble about it, and that's because you're kind of a humble guy. But it's a big deal that you a lot of things that you started with the Sheep Foundation.
Oh, it's been my privilege. I love it. I
Yeah.
love working with the kids. Getting these kids involved. I'm trying to get so many kids involved because they're the future. If we don't get them going,
Yep.
we're in trouble long term. We're really in trouble if we don't get them involved and going.
Well, we've talked about this. At least I've talked about this to different nonprofits. Tom Fishing for Life gets a lot of kids involved with fishing, but you got the Turkey Federation. They've got
Jake's?
they've got the Jakes, but that's typically something that they do at their banquets. They take care of the young kids, but they're not getting. And I may be speaking out of school. They're not. Doesn't seem to me they're getting many. They're making a big effort to get kids out turkey hunting, or is Pheasants Forever getting kids out to go pheasant hunting? Is Ducks Unlimited? Do they have a program where they're solely trying to get kids out? I know Outdoor News that I work with, we have a junior team now. It's all about the kids, but you got to get the kids involved. I mean, I could go on about this for hours, and I don't want to bore all of our listeners because I know I would be preaching to the choir, but Oscar is getting a lot of kids, not hundreds, but certainly a couple dozen every year, out into the field to see something that they've never seen before, to enjoy the wildlife, and it's just good to get kids involved. And I guess there's the
There's the stakes. Woo.
Yeah.
Well, that guy that's serving the steak there looks like he doesn't miss too many meals, does he?
No, well,
I mean, no offense
No,
to him, but
he-
wowza.
he doesn't go up the mountain anymore.
Those cooks were great guys.
Yeah.
There's the team again. And there's some of the Mescal Mountains behind them.
Yeah, we had we've always been able to pick out some good people. How we get these kids qualified, I usually make contact in different schools that I know might have an interest, or a parent here and there that has shown an interest. And I contact a key person, usually the superintendent, see if they're interested in promoting it amongst their students, or asking for if they would like to consider that. So, and if they are, then I'll give them a bunch of information, or I'll go right to the school and make a presentation. I'll show them a slideshow from prior years or something. And then I ask for essays. So they got to qualify. They got to do something to show an interest. And so they have to write a no more than 250 pages. I mean, words. or else I'd get bored, or I couldn't read them all. But I try to cut it off after about 20 good essays, because it makes it too hard to pick and choose. And I don't like to disappoint too many of the kids by saying, well, you just didn't make, yours wasn't good enough, or,
Right.
So I try to eliminate it.
Your story was terrible.
Yeah, right. So that's how they qualify that way. But then we got to get their parents' permission. We got to get waivers from their parents for the
Death or dismemberment.
yeah snake bites for the Arizona Desert Bighorn Sheep Society. The Arizona Game and Fish wants a waiver. Our chapter wants a waiver. So you got to get all these waivers all signed, and you got to get their for flying. You got to have all the information. Their
Name, date of birth.
Name, date of birth, driver's license. You got to have photos. You got to have this and that. So it's a real achievement just to put that together. And I usually have a lot of help with that with my assistant. But still, it takes a lot of time, a lot of paperwork.
It's quite the rigmarole to travel.
Oh yeah.
I was telling, so we have an annual trip we take, my wife and I, to this little town, fishing town in Mexico called Sayulita. And it's north of Puerto Vallarta, about an hour on the west coast.
Okay. Yeah.
It's fantastic. So if you ever get the chance to go that way, you would not be disappointed. The cuisine's amazing, culture's amazing, and it's not overrun with tourists like a Puerto Vallarta or a Cancun. So it's great. Anyway, so we were down there, and to fly back to go into Mexico, you don't need any kind of like vaccination or anything like that. Come back to the U.S., you have to show proof of either vaccination or a negative COVID test. Actually, now that I think about that, I think they were making everyone show negative COVID test, regardless of vaccination status. So anyway, they had this tent set up in the parking lot, this huge tent. And you go in there and you register, and then they have a lab attached to it where they, swab your nose with a giant Q-tip, and they, 30 minutes later, they have a result for you. So this is in the parking lot at the airport. So they make you go through this whole thing, and you get your lab results back in your email on your phone 30 minutes later saying you're negative, and then you walk into the airport and they make you wear a mask. And I was like, I stopped at the door for a second, and I'm talking to the security guy, and I was like, really? And he goes, yep, it's required. I'm like, but you're making everybody get a negative COVID test before they walk in here. Yeah, still got to wear one.
Yeah.
What exactly is the mask preventing the spread of? And he just kind of sat there for a second, because I don't think anyone ever said something to him about it. And he's just like, I don't know, but it's the rules. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, we went through the same thing. We went to Tanzania a year ago after the last podcast, I think. And boy, they had tents set up at one of our last travel stop. And then we were able to get the results and then go, because it had to be within 24 hours.
Yep.
So, but then we had to show that, I think, in 2 different spots or 3 different spots, because you kept traveling, you kept changing countries,
Yeah. Just got to staple that thing to
So,
your
yeah,
forehead as
right.
you go from spot to spot.
And then coming back from Mexico too, we went down there in January, and we had to get another test there. And anyway, it's a
mess.
It's a mess right now.
There's absolutely no logic in that scenario whatsoever. I was like, this makes there's absolutely no safety protocol, whatever, that you can assign to this
Right.
to where it makes sense to an intelligent person. But,
Well,
Well, I think right now this is a great time for us to take a little break. We'll empty our bladders and refill our glasses, and we will be back on the other side.
And when we come back, Shane, we've got a fabulous video of this year's Waterhole project.
We do.
So,
And more photos, because I saw a little sneak peek in there of a scorpion. I want to talk about that too. So
sure.
So folks, stick around, and while you're there, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and follow us for more entertainment in the future. We'll be right back with more Oscar Carlson.
Boots and Backstraps, brought to you by Homes by Shane and produced by Danny Geo Productions.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Boots and Backstraps. We are still here. TK, you're still with us, right?
I am.
And we still have the world-renowned and famous, as we now know from the golf course owner,
wow.
Oscar Carlson.
Hey,
Well, he's always just been a good hunting buddy of mine until I went golfing with him down in Arizona, and then I realized how famous he was.
He was like, hey, he's like Elvis.
Burt Reynolds.
He's like, yeah, like Burt Reynolds with better aim. Of course, when you're shooting with you, you don't really probably have to aim all that
I don't
well.
worry about it. I just towards it, I'd shock them to death if nothing else.
General direction.
Yeah, right. No, it takes a good hit, but you can bring them down with that gun.
Oscar, you and Val like to go to a movie once in a while and go and see Elvis. It was great. Lynn and I went to see Elvis the other night. It was fabulous. It was just
Elvis. Oh, okay.
Brand new movie.
Yeah. I've heard of it.
And they have had a string of bad movie experiences lately, so if this is one that he's promoting.
It's great. Yeah. Sometimes we would go to a movie just to get the heck out of the house and have some good buttered popcorn,
Mm-hmm.
But Tom Hanks is Colonel Parker, and it's a great movie. That kid that played Elvis was phenomenal.
They always hate me at the popcorn stand at the movie theater because they're like, tell me when, with the butter thing. Yeah. And they're like, sir, the butter container's empty.
Yeah.
Well, you better make some more.
Yeah. My wife says, no, just put 1 scoop there and then butter, and then another scoop in butter.
Yep.
Yeah, what the heck?
So, we got to get a lot of buttered popcorn.
Otherwise, you get butter in your top 2 inches, right?
Right, yeah.
And the thing's friggin' 12 inches high.
Right.
It's like, what? You got
Yeah.
robbed.
We go there for popcorn.
Yeah, sometimes just to relax. We've seen a couple of, like we went and saw Jurassic, whatever, and it's the same old stuff. And I don't know. We don't need to talk about that. We've got one of my best friends in the whole world on as a guest, and the hunting that we've done together is lifelong memories, and even the other things we've done together.
So I found it interesting when you guys were talking about some of the species and wildlife and stuff that's native to those territories, and the gentleman that you had, that Barry, was that his name? That brought the animals?
Yeah, it was Randy Babb.
Randy Babb, sorry.
Randy Babb. He brought all kinds of stuff, and one of those things that he showed us was that scorpion.
Yeah. Danny,
Yeah.
do you have that scorpion handy?
Yeah, look at that.
So now I have heard that in the scorpion species realm, that the larger ones that are like black or very dark are far less poisonous than the smaller translucent ones like
Right.
this.
I believe that's true.
You know what? This one here was actually one that the girls were picking rocks, and they uncovered this one. That one was actually we found in the wild.
Okay.
Oh,
But the Randy Babb had one in a cup for a demonstration for us.
Was it also a smaller?
It was It was smaller. It was more transparent also. But and he didn't talk about, the age and the poisonous properties. So I don't know if that's true or not. But you can see that hook there on the back of that thing. The girls were all excited. I went down there and looked at it and took a couple pictures myself. But this was an excellent picture of close-up.
That's a great shot.
Yeah.
You got to be careful about how close you get to those things.
And we know some guys that were sleeping on the ground. I swear, they just have no fear.
No.
The naturalist, Babs, if I'm saying that correctly.
You keep saying naturalist like he doesn't shave his legs or what?
No, he's a world-renowned naturalist. I mean,
Randy Babb. Yeah.
Randy Babs is his expertise are out in the desert, but he's wrote several books like this one, and he was introduced as a naturalist, so that's why I remember it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, I know, Oscar, part of what you did down there was to take part in a banquet. Is that right?
Oh, I've been. That's where. We took part in the national down in Reno.
Sure.
And the Reno it's where it's been held for quite a few years now. And I think I've missed a show in 45 years.
And as part of this, there was a video that was displayed talking about this project, right?
Oh, yeah, and that was our regional one. It was our Midwest chapter, where we showed the whole video. And I put one together, and a gal that probably is going to take my place. I've been doing this for so long that I'm thinking of retiring from this project. And a gal by the name of Chris Bickman she's really enthusiastic about taking a hold of this project and leading it. So I didn't want it to die because it's been so effective, and I get so many letters and thank yous from these kids, and it's just been a joy. So she's going to take it over anyway. I think what we used, hers was just as good or better than mine. So I think we sent hers.
I think we have
around.
both of them.
Could be.
Yeah, Danny, can we roll to the video, and then we'll just let Oscar talk us through this?
Yeah, there is music with it, yep.
Well, I can talk through the music, too, if it comes up.
Yeah.
There's a few times we've seen sheep on these projects. This time we did not, but the time before, we ran into a group of 17 sheep, big desert bighorn sheep. There's some pictures of the kids. We were all jammed in a one rig. Here we are in the
Arboretum.
The Arboretum, yeah. The wildlife, the desert.
Boyce Thompson Arboretum.
Boyce Thompson Arboretum, that's right. It was termed a desert museum. And they had a fantastic presentation.
That was a cool place. You and I never got to that bridge.
No, There's two of the leaders, Linda and Charlie, with me there, and here's some of the kids. There's the girls and the guys. We had one tall guy.
Yeah, he could swing that pickaxe.
Yeah.
That helicopter was fairly close to the cook tent, so we got a little bit of grit with our food.
Yeah, and in our tents.
Okay, there's the 4 tanks.
They did have a rig up there to dig some flat holes for us. That was.
They had a bobcat.
Yeah.
I wonder how long it took that bobcat to get up there.
I don't know. I think they had hauled. There's the frame for the roof, I'll call it. There's the tanks all lined up, and they're installing a pipe that leads into the drinker. That's what that black pipe was.
Oh, they're putting the metal on there?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's our naturalist, And I don't know why. And there's the scorpions he had. And
Did he handle those scorpions?
no, he didn't handle the
He had
scorpions.
most of them in a container.
Yeah.
Some of the kids.
I have to imagine it's a pretty wild temperature swing because it drops a lot at night, right?
Oh, the kids they froze out last. The first night it got down into the 20s, didn't it, Tom? Yeah. And they
That's
had.
a whole nother story.
I told them they better be ready for cold, but they never do
was.
take enough.
It was cold. You would not have survived, Shane.
Tom went begging for sleeping bags.
Well, I
and
left my sleeping bag up at the place in Wisconsin, so they hooked me up with one, and it literally was like an outfitter sleeping bag. It had 4 layers in it that you could get under anyone you wanted to. I was underneath all of them.
There's the girls.
Was it warm enough?
There's the scorpion that they found. There it is.
Oh, cool.
And that's the picture. They're yelling at me, hey, come here. Look at what we found. Because we were gathering rocks and carrying them up for the drinker, to put around the drinker.
Around the apron.
Why do you put rocks around it?
Oh, just to protect it. I mean, just to make sure that it's real stable and doesn't get wore off and blown away from the drinker.
Sure.
It's where he put that medallion. Right there's the drinker.
Yeah.
So we put rocks in the cement around it. You know, I was bringing piles of rocks up there, and I never thought to look for a snake or a scorpion. You don't think of it until I guess you see one.
The kids had to haul, there's cement bags, cement mix stuff. They weighed about 50 pounds each, I think. Mm-hmm. And they had to carry them all the way down, and then bring water buckets down to mix the cement. And they really worked their tail off. Do it right, I see that sign says.
Young and strong backs.
Oh, yeah. They loved it when we show up with these kids.
Oh, gosh, I bet.
Yeah.
See, there's the apron, and we're putting those rocks into the cement.
Oh, she's got a trowel in her hand. Look at that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she knew what she was doing. There was some.
There it is. There's the apron itself.
And then the close end towards us is the drain, the gutter, I should say. Oh, those kids had blisters. Swinging those pickaxes and those big, long chisels.
They look like good kids. Smiles on their faces.
Oh, they were.
Who's this guy with this goofy rag on his head?
You know, it was the last day my ears were getting burnt. I finally said, I should put a rag or something under my hat.
There's our beefy cook.
Yeah. Like he's trying to steal a brisket or something.
What are they highlighting there, Oscar?
They always wrap it up with
that circle.
Oh, I don't know what
okay. Anyway,
what this means is that they've got a saying, and that without water, death. Mm-hmm. And that's very true.
I'm sorry, you and I weren't on the same page, but they wrap up the weekend with a big bonfire.
Yeah.
And a couple of adult beverages were being served.
Oh yeah.
And some not adult ones, I would assume.
And just not as good as these, of course.
No.
Yeah. Do you like that one?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Very nice.
It's good.
Well, I can't thank those people down in Arizona enough. They were so kind and so obliged, hospitable to us. And it was such a great time for me. I know you always enjoy it. I just would always get little bits and pieces. I'd see pictures of Waterhole projects, and we'd talk a little bit about it, but to actually have experienced it was truly a highlight for me. Something I'll never forget.
So, Oscar, what kind of investment does a project like this cost?
Well, overall, I don't know, but we usually fundraise, and we used to do it. Val and I used to do it ourselves for a while, but now we take 12 to 14 kids usually, and that's about $1,000 a head. Sometimes a little more, but that's not. So that's what our part of the investment is. But then the Arizona chapter has a lot of. They have actually more people than we provide. They probably have 50 people show up.
Wow. These are all the tradespeople you're talking
Yeah,
about.
right. And then the DNR has about 5 or 6 also, and those guys are the guys that keep the project going and in sequence, because you got to do certain things in certain times. Otherwise, you get behind or you get ahead of something, and then it doesn't work out. So,
Right.
But the other thing I wanted to mention is the Wild Sheep Foundation itself has been a big supporter overall for all kinds of this type of project, and transplanting and all kinds of disease control and studies, and we're trying. But the transplanting is a big thing because we've lost so many mountain ranges even that sheep used to roam, and they've been all eliminated. So it's pretty cool to have all of us involved. It takes a whole big effort.
Oh, and those tradespeople that are up there, whether they're pipe fitters, welders, electricians, they're all vested in the Sheep Foundation. So they take their various talents and they all get together and put it together, and it's a miraculous thing to see happen in 3 days.
Yeah, it is amazing because you go there and it's just a bunch of dirt and parts laying all over, and then the helicopters start dropping more stuff, and all that cement, those skids and skids and skids of cement mix, and then they got to bring in the water tanks too. See, they got to bring the water up there.
Can't even imagine how many trips that helicopter has to take.
Oh, yeah.
Dozens, I'm
It'd
sure.
take a lot. It was always coming up and down the mountain. It was a lot of stuff to bring up.
And with the wind, you have to really be careful with those slings, those long ropes. If they got caught in the wind, boy, they really got everybody out of the way.
Yeah.
And we were lucky actually on one time when I don't know if you were there, Tom, probably were, when those old metal sheets were laying
Oh,
there,
yeah.
and a
One
gust
flew up,
of
yep.
gust of wind came and come across and flipped one of them off and hit one of our kids.
Hit one of the kids in the leg, but it wasn't.
But he wasn't hurt, thank goodness.
If it would have hit him just right, it could have taken his leg off.
Yeah, I mean,
But fortunately, it didn't hit him hard.
all right. So anyway, there's when you do something like that, you're exposing yourself and
Yep.
the organization to a little extra risk,
Oh, yeah.
just like when you're
Liability.
hunting. Yeah. When you're hunting up in the mountains, the same thing, you don't want to make too many mistakes.
I mean, it's not like bribing checks on the way out of the mountains, right? With vodka.
Right. No,
That's a whole different
that's
level of
a
risk.
different deal, yeah.
Danny, if you can hold that, as long as we have Oscar here,
Here's a
let's
few-
start out. He's got the World Slam in sheep, 4 North American Grand Slams. I just prodded him to get out some of his pictures, and I took some off my phone. He took some off of his phone.
So the North American Slam is which?
The doll
breed?
sheep, the bighorn sheep, the desert bighorn, and the, what am I missing?
Stone.
The stone sheep.
This is a desert bighorn, really a good specimen, strong one from the Carmen Island down in Mexico.
Okay.
Talk about fishing. I got this sheep, and then we went fishing in the Sea of Cortez, and was that fun? They're great fishing there, and we got lobster and clams, and oh geez, it was crazy.
You're
Anyway.
making me hungry.
So what then is included as far as species in the World Slam?
Oh, wow.
The blue sheep, I guess you could have an aoudad in there. You'd have Marco Polo. You have the Trans-Caspian Urial. You have the Mongolian High Altai. Gobi Argali, and
There's a bunch of them.
there's a lot of them.
Last couple of pictures were a couple of beautiful doll sheep. Here's that Texas Aoudad.
That was really a strong one. He was.
That's a big animal.
Oscar, I was bow hunting down in Texas one year, and an Aoudad ran right past me. Didn't know I was there. Freaked me out.
Oh yeah, they're big, tough animal. Yeah.
And I didn't have a permit to shoot an Aoudad, but I couldn't believe I got that close to one, or he got that close to me.
So here's this is a high Altai Argali from Mongolia.
Look at those horns.
It was a massive. That was a fantastic trophy.
They're not as, correct me if I'm wrong, they're not as large as a Marco Polo, correct?
Well, the bodies of these aren't quite as big, but if you measure the bases of those,
Bases are massive.
are huge. I have one that's even bigger than that, but the score is pretty darn close. It's
Is
a
it?
push, yeah.
Okay.
Because the bases on these high Altai Argali are bigger than the Marco Polo.
Oh,
Yeah. If you
it looked bigger. I think we have a picture of a Marco Polo coming up. I could be wrong.
I don't know. I sent one back there, but maybe didn't show up. I don't know.
Danny, can you maybe continue rolling those hunting photos? Because we're almost done with the program, and
I'm
as long
sorry.
as
What happened?
we're just hoping you continue with the photos that we shipped back to you.
Let me
Ship.
see what's in my my landing strip here. Should I not say that? I probably shouldn't say that.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, given the way this program has gone. That's a muley.
That's a big old muley.
Yeah, that one I got down in Mexico.
Did you hear the muley story? Tom and I were coming back from hunting
Antelope
Pronghorn
out in South Dakota.
last year, coming back from South Dakota. And we're driving down the highway, and he's napping in the passenger seat, and I was driving. And this mule deer came out of this cornfield and was standing with his front legs up on the very edge of the road on the gravel, and his hind legs were at the bottom of the ditch. And this was the biggest deer I've ever seen in my entire life. The rack on this thing was like this tall. Just absolutely massive deer. Like, I almost lost my breath. I was speechless. I didn't even think to poke him to wake him up and point it out.
I never saw it.
It was just huge, 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 huge.
Wow.
Yeah, and this is in South Dakota.
South Dakota.
South Dakota's got some big deer.
Did you find some other ones on your hair formation there?
Here's another muley.
This was a muley I got on Colorado.
Wow.
That was huge. That one was over 200.
I mean, look at the girth, the mass on those beams.
Uh-huh.
That's impressive.
I want all of our listeners and viewers to know that it wasn't Oscar's idea to bring out these pictures. It was my idea because I like to see them, and I'm sure you do too.
I think this is the last that I have, unless you guys have one specifically.
No, that could be all.
I think that's it.
The Marco Polo.
There's a Marco
wasn't-
Polo
wasn't
sheep with
shown,
great big.
but that's okay. That's all right.
Yeah, we showed
Well,
it
good.
on the last program when you were in.
Yeah.
So if you want to see more hunting pictures, make sure you look back in the catalog of the last time that Oscar was with us, because we had quite a few of other photos from other hunts that you've had.
Yeah, I can't remember
show.
which photos I brought on that podcast, but anyway.
The Marco Polo for sure was there, because I remember
Okay.
it's like really wide, right?
Oh yeah. They're huge.
And they live at 14,000 feet in the upper, what do they call, high desert plains. It's-
Tajikistan is where I was hunting them. I got as actually. I'm sure we want to wrap this up, but I got as high as 17,000.
Oh my gosh.
And I was really sick. I had to get off that height. It was really dangerous. My heart was going crazy.
Wow.
And,
Yeah.
I couldn't breathe, and my head was exploding. And
Oh, that's right. You said you had a really terrible headache.
oh yeah, horrible. I can't sleep because the head is pounding so bad, and you're all doubled up. It was hard. So our camp was at 14.5.
Jeez.
So that was too high.
Wow.
Really.
The reason I'm wearing sunglasses is because I was too high for too long. I'm surprised that you haven't heard more about the lack of oxygen at too high of an altitude, because that's how I lost a lot of my eyesight, is because I was spent too long at too high of an elevation. There was smoke and ash in the air from the forest fires, and I cannot imagine being at 14,000 feet.
Well, it's tough, and I was taking a medication to help your exchange the oxygen, the little oxygen that you take in. So I was having some help, but I didn't have enough. Anyway.
Wow.
All right, boys. Well, I think we got the bases covered here. What an awesome experience for you, Tom, to get to participate in that.
It was.
But what an awesome thing that you're doing with this, and not just your part in conservation, but that, like you mentioned, training this future generation and its importance and doing those things.
Yeah, it's been really fun, and the kids really dig in there and do a fabulous job. And some of them have even written to me later. Some of them have even said that, well, I'm going to go into some kind of conservation efforts
Right.
after this project. It was that impactful on them. Impactful, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So,
All right. Well, Oscar, thank you so much for joining us for our episode this week.
thanks for asking me. Appreciate
Great
it.
to have you here again, pal.
Oh, of course. Folks, make sure you send your questions, comments, and snide remarks to bootsandbackstrapspodcast@gmail.com. And we've certainly enjoyed having you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the whether it's YouTube or Spotify or whatever social media platform you're picking this up on. And TK, bring this thing in for landing, why don't you?
Well, folks, whether you're out there belting out your favorite country song or pursuing your favorite game animal, I encourage you to use that same passion to pursue the Lord. He'll teach you to shoot straight. Nice having you with us this week, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Good night.
Boots and Backstraps is proudly brought to you by Homes by Shane. Making your move with the Homes by Shane team means an unparalleled customer service experience. That level of service is the foundation of this referral-based business. Our driven team of experts communicate with their clients every step of the way, ensuring a memorable experience from the first conversation through your closing day. Go to homesbyshane.com for more information. Let's get you home.
Come on now.
The hunt is on, looking for backstraps, way deep in the woods, tracking in a swamp to a hay field under the harvest moon. When the tags are filled, it's time to switch up our boots. Head down to the honky tonk, get us a swing dance or two. We're talking about boots and backstraps.